Welcome
to Sort of the Story.
This is the podcast where we tell each other stories, and also you are here.
Welcome. Happy to see you.
My name is Max.
My name is Janey.
And we're friends. And that's honestly the smoothest we've done the intro so far.
That's sort of the intro. Guys, are you impressed with us? Oh my god. How do you think?
We sound like grown-ups.
Oh my god. Write in at sortofthestory@gmail.com and tell us how cool we are. How good we are.
Are you proud of us?
Can you just write in really quick and say, Janey, this is your mom, I'm proud of you.
Just if all of you could do that, that would be really awesome.
All of you. Yeah, every single one of you.
Adopt us at sortofthestory@gmail.com.
Yeah, we'll send you the
You're
adoption
our moms
papers.
now.
Aww.
Regardless of gender.
Yeah, or age. We got a bunch of 14-year-old moms. This podcast, we're about to tell each other some stories. It is not a podcast for children, simply because we curse and there are some adult themes. That doesn't mean children can't enjoy this. Mm-hmm. But just so they have to be cool.
Yeah, be cool.
Hey kids, be cool.
Don't be a goddamn narc.
Can you fucking please stop it? Can you be cool like your older sisters / daughters?
That's us.
Hey children, you adopted us earlier, remember? We're your responsibility now. Yeah, this weekend was my birthday. I made my friends watch Fast and Furious. Max made brownies. They were delicious. That's the news.
Yeah, they're Bailey's brownies, and they're very tasty.
Mm-hmm.
I made the brownies look like a road, and I put little toy cars all over it, and there was a little finish line, and it was really cute. And one of the cars was wrecked because of Fast and Furious.
That was the piece that I got. I like to think of that as Dom's car at the end of the first movie.
Yes.
After he gets hit by the train.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't get by a train. He gets hit by a semi.
Yeah, he gets past a train, and then a semi hits him. Spoilers for Fast and Furious if you haven't seen it.
That's not the only time you've had like 25 years. A horrific car accident. My favorite film franchise ever. So if you want to celebrate me, go watch Fast and Furious.
Yeah. It was also another one of our friends' birthdays, and one of the first things I learned about him is that he got so excited that he got a nosebleed and passed out at a Kesha concert.
His name is Jordan. He's our friend Lauren's husband.
Yes. So I made him a funfetti cake that just had 8 different kinds of sparkles all over it.
And we all
sprinkles.
Put sparkles all over our faces.
Yeah.
It was a Kesha Fast and Furious party.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
Yeah, that's what we did.
What did you guys do this week?
We hope you had a good weekend. It was an Earth Day weekend. Hope you did something earthy.
Yeah.
Or day-like.
Honestly, I'm looking forward to Mars Day when we all go to Mars and kick Elon Musk's musky ass.
I don't think he's becoming more powerful. He just bought Twitter.
Don't have to tell me twice. Speaking of, we're
Max's
on Twitter.
Favorite platform.
It's the only platform that I consistently participate in. And even that, not really. But Sort of the Story is on Twitter if you want to follow us while it still exists. It's Twitter user Sort of the Story, all one word, no punctuation. Same on TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
So go ahead and follow us there before all social media collapses. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun.
Thrilling.
And then if you're listening to this now, we already did our episode 30 live TikTok stream, so we hope you enjoyed it. So this week, Max is going first.
I'm going first.
And I'm excited to hear it. So
cool.
Let's go.
Absolutely. All right. So the past couple of episodes, I've been kind of extolling the virtues of this series of fairy tale collections, which is a collection called Oddly Modern Fairy Tales. All the books are edited by Jack Zipes, who is a great folklorist. This is another one of those books in that series of Oddly Modern Fairy Tales that I will be presenting from this week. This book is called The Pomegranates and Other Modern Italian Fairy Tales. It is translated by Cristina Mazzoni. There are a couple of different authors whose fairy tales are recorded in this book. The one that I'm going to be reading from was originally written by Gabriele D'Annunzio, who lived from 1863 to 1938, who's from Abruzzi in Italy. They were originally in Italian. Cristina Mazzoni translated them for this edition. There are a couple of other translations of his stories, but the story that I'm going to tell you is called The Song of the Bloodied Ricotta.
Ooh! Ew! Those were two emotions I just felt.
Yes. Before we get started, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do this at the beginning or the end, but it's important enough that I'm going to say it. The original writer, Gabriele D'Annunzio, was alive in Italy during the time leading up to and concurrent with the First World War. He was first a folklorist, and then later he joined the volunteer forces in Italy in the First World War, and he became a very prominent writer of pro-fascistic ideologies. Benito Mussolini himself was like, this is one of my favorite writers.
Endorsement. Mussolini approved.
Yeah, he was one of the first people to sign the Fascist Manifesto for the Italian Fascist Party. So, didn't find this out until after I chose this story, but this is one of those situations where the author is deeply problematic. I don't think that his personal politics are a part of this story. I don't think that they play into it necessarily, any more so than any other folktale that we've done, but it would be irresponsible of me not to mention it.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that a necessary part of certain branches of the Italian Fascist Party were being racist, and there is some racism in this story, which I also didn't find out until I researched a certain word, which is a slur. So we'll get to that when we get to that. Which Max has just been
throwing around. I'm kidding. No, she hasn't.
No. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But just so you know that this story is it doesn't color the story necessarily, but just so that you're aware of where the author of this story is coming from.
Don't go getting this author tattooed onto your chest.
Yeah. And it's also,
unless you're a fascist.
He didn't create the fairy tale. This is an Abruzese fairy tale from before he was around. So it's not like he created the fairy tale, but this edition is written by him. So,
okay.
Just so we know going into it a little bit of, what's the word? Responsibility? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay. All right. So our story begins in Abruzzi in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
There was a queen who had only one son. And in the way that monarchies work, the way that the title is passed down is when the son of a royal family marries someone, he becomes the king. If the son doesn't get married, he can't become the king, and the daughters can't, marry someone and have their partner become the king, because that would mean the end of the family line. So their husband would be the king, but it would be a new line. So, if you want to preserve your family line in the monarchy, you want your son to be married so that he can be the king.
So when he gets married, he automatically becomes king then? So the king's reign is over and now his son takes over?
I'm not sure. The king is not in this story, so okay. I'm not sure whether it's that. But just so you know, oldest son of a royal family, it is pertinent that he is not getting married.
Okay.
But the queen has one son, and this son refuses to marry. He's like, I'm just not interested, which would be fair in many situations, but not in this one.
Yeah.
The queen is so frustrated with him. She's like, you have to get married. You have to carry on our royal line. She brings all of the beautiful young maidens from around the kingdom to the palace and is like, look at all these maidens. You can marry literally any of them. And he's like, pass on all. No, thank you. And the queen is like, all right, sorry girls, I guess go home. And so time goes by and he keeps refusing to get married, and she's becoming very frustrated. And then one day at lunch, they're sitting down and she's like, it is really important. And she's lecturing him about this. Mm-hmm. And she cuts into a fresh ricotta, mm-hmm. which is a soft cheese. She cuts into it as she's talking to him, and she's not really paying attention to what she's doing. She cuts her finger and blood spills onto the ricotta,
blech. Which
is a bright white cheese and fresh blood.
Ugh.
And the prince looks at that and is like, that's what I want to marry.
Okay, what the fuck is up with people? That's what I hope my baby looks like. It's just...
Yeah, I did a lot of research into that for this episode, and I'll get to that at the end. But
mm-hmm.
the prince sees his mom's blood on a piece of cheese and is like, I'd fuck it.
Is anybody else weirdly horny right now?
He's like, I will only marry a woman who is as white as that ricotta and as red as that blood.
No.
No. Sure.
I don't understand.
And it's unclear whether he's saying this because he's like, there is no woman like that exists, so I will never have to get married, or if he's like, I am into one thing and one thing only.
It turns out my fetish is specific.
Yeah, there's ass men, tits men, and then white as ricotta, red as blood men.
I don't know why titsmen. Really.
I'm a titsman.
Oh God. Mr. Assman, Mr. Titsman.
Attorneys at law.
Assman, Titsman.
So the queen, he announces that he'll only marry a woman who's white and red, and
who's black and white and red all over. A zebra in a blender. Nailed it.
A newspaper.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
The queen says, "My dear son, take a horse and a bag full of gold and set off for foreign lands. This is how you will perhaps find her."
Okay.
So she's like, she calls his bluff maybe and is like, okay, go get her then. You gotta go find her. So she gives him a horse and a bag of gold and he rides off. And he rides long and far and he meets many gorgeous young ladies and none of them are quite the right color palette for him. So he keeps riding and riding and he starts becoming discouraged and he gets to the border with Naples and he's like, I'm just gonna turn around. Like, this is not worth it. Like, I'm just gonna go home and like tell my mom that I'm just not gonna get married. And as he gets to the border of Naples, a woman walks up to him, a beggar, and she says, "Hi, what are you doing here?"
Hey, what's up?
What's up? And he's like, "I am out here looking for the love of my life. She will be as white as fresh ricotta and as red as my mom's blood on fresh ricotta." And the beggar says to him, "Oh, is that all? I can help you with that if you would like." And he's like, "Yeah, that would be great." Hang on, actually, I'm going to go back a little bit because the verbatim translation of this is hilarious, where the beggar walks up to him and says, "Oh, handsome youth, where are you going?" And the prince says, "Well, kind woman, I am going about my business."
Oh, fuck!
Damn, dude.
All right, sorry.
And also, he explains that he wants a woman as white as ricotta and as red as his mother's blood, and then he pulls out this bloody ricotta from his pocket
Ew!
and shows her, and she's like, "Oh, I get it."
Oh, I didn't understand before when you said it, but now this old, warm, bloody ricotta.
Now I get it.
Gross.
That's what every man wants.
What did his mom think when he put that ricotta in a Ziploc bag?
You put it in the bag full of gold. He just put it on top of the gold.
Ew!
And he keeps having to pay for dinner with, like,
Bloody
old cheesy coins.
Old cheesy gold. You
That
know.
was his nickname in high school, actually.
Old cheesy
Unrelated.
gold.
And so this beggar says she'll help him and everything. And she gives him 3 walnuts. And she's like... There you go. No, she
The end.
Isn't this better than a wife anyways? She gives him 3 walnuts and she explains to him, she says, "As you go along your journey, you're going to come across a fountain. And when you get to that fountain, I want you to take this walnut and crack it open on the fountain. And a beautiful woman will come out, just as you described."
The nut?
Yep. She live in the nut. She's like, this beautiful woman is going to come out of the nut.
So you're gonna... Never mind.
Say it.
You're gonna bust a nut!
Yeah.
So hot in here.
Yes. So she's like, you're going to go to the fountain, you're going to bust a nut. And then you're going to meet a lady.
That's how I met my wife.
She's like, a beautiful maiden, just as you described, is going to come out of this nut. But really quickly, she's going to be naked. So what you have to do is you have to take your cloak and really quickly cover her up. Because if you don't cover with the cloak quickly enough, she'll disappear. Right?
Yeah.
But fortunately, if that happens, you can just keep walking until you get to another fountain and then take the second walnut and crack it on the fountain, bust a nut. And then you can try again to, like, cloak that lady. And if that doesn't work, then you can do it a third time. So there's a lot of fail-safes
Yeah,
here.
like, what the hell?
Just in case that doesn't
Can you
work.
please just, like, prepare... Hold on. There's a cat rubbing against the microphone.
Hi, you're famous.
Bye. Okay, so all he has to do is have a cloak ready for that.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna guess he doesn't do that right away.
Yeah.
What a fucking idiot. Go ahead. This is the easiest task anybody's ever been given. Bust a nut and then, like, cover it. But he's the prince. He's never had to be ashamed before.
Yes. So he says, thank you so much for these magical nuts.
Fascism is so silly.
It really is. So he takes the nuts from her and he thanks her and he gives her a handful of gold, which is covered in cheese. Also, he has a whole bag of gold, and this is literally all he has to do is, like, find this maiden. So there's this woman who just gave him
the answer?
Potentially 3 wives. And he's like, and here's $10. Thank you so much. So the prince continues down the road until he gets to a fountain. And he cracks open a walnut, and a beautiful woman, exactly as he described, as white as ricotta and as red as his mother's blood on ricotta.
A beautiful, lumpy, cheesy woman.
Forth in this fountain. And he's like, oh, beautiful. And he's starstruck by her. And he forgets that he has to put a cloak on her, and then she disappears. Which is not explained. Like, maybe she dies?
He's literally just, like, looking at a naked woman. He's like, that's great. And then she leaves because she's like, fuck you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Nice.
But she disappears, and it's not clear whether she just, like, goes back into the nut, or if she's just dead. Like, if he just killed this woman.
I think we know the answer. She dried up on that fountain, and then he had to, like, wipe her off with, like, a tissue.
Or, like, an old sock.
Yeah.
So he's like, nuts. I can't believe I didn't cloak her fast enough. So he goes to the second fountain, and he cracks open his walnut on the fountain again. And another woman, even more beautiful than last, exactly as he described, bursts forth, and he's like, wow.
Look at those
And then
boobies.
she's like, and like disappears again. And he's like, nuts. Good thing there are 3 of these.
I don't know. I don't have any faith in you, sir.
So finally he gets to the third fountain and his final nut.
Got 1 nut left. Make it count.
And he cracks his walnut open on this fountain, and this woman bursts forth, even more beautiful than the first 2. And he throws his cloak over her really quickly, and she doesn't disappear. Also, though, she's the most beautiful of the 3, which feels like enforcing bad habits a little bit, where it's like, if you'd just done the right thing the first time, that should have been the most beautiful one.
Yeah.
Like, logically.
No. Yeah, no, I would have fucked up the second one on purpose. Like, immediately figuring out the pattern.
Yeah.
I'm loving if the third one comes out, and she's like, she's fine. She comes out chewing bubble gum. She's got a big tattoo of a mermaid. And the mermaid's like riding a bicycle somehow. Yeah, but like not in her mouth. It's really weird.
So he throws his cloak over this woman, and he's like, hooray! I caught myself a bride. The simplest possible task. I've finally done it. And the prince says, oh beauty, climb atop that tree, and I will go fetch your clothes and return to you within 3 days.
Sure.
Be careful, don't listen to anyone. And then he leaves.
Sir, like, it doesn't take 3 days. It didn't take 3 days to go to an H&M. All right.
Also, she was specifically like, you have to cloak her really quickly because she's going to be naked. And then he walked down the road and went and did it immediately and like was like, oh, but she can't just walk around in my cloak now. So he just leaves her there for 3 days. While he goes and tries to find clothes for this woman that he knew was going to be naked.
Also,
just bring extra clothes.
We don't know her life story. Like, for all we know, this is her life story. She's a baby.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, just be naked and put on this coat and then go hide in a tree and I'll be back in 3 days. A unit of time that you could not possibly have a concept of.
This is the origin of the born sexy yesterday trope.
Yeah. Yeah, so he goes and gets to go get clothes and to prepare for their wedding, which it really feels like she should be a part of that like, preparation
this guy sucks.
Progress. Yeah, so she's just waiting in this tree. The first day that she's waiting in a tree, a very ugly servant from the queen's palace,
sure,
his mom's palace, comes to fetch water, which also, he clearly hasn't gone that far.
Yeah, like, where is he? If the servant
just went around the block.
He's in the garden.
So
makes you wonder how that beggar get in the garden.
So this servant shows up from the queen's castle with a pitcher for water, and she goes to draw water from the fountain. And meanwhile,
she's a girl.
Huh?
She's a girl.
Yes,
and she's ugly.
She's very ugly.
That's rude, Max.
And so this is where
ugly.
This is where the racism happens.
Okay,
the servant is.
All right, everybody, brace yourself.
Yeah. The servant is described as a Saracen, which is someone of Arabic or Muslim descent. It's just it's a term like it's very negative. It came about in the time of not the Inquisition, the other one. Templars?
Oh,
maybe?
okay. I don't know.
I don't know, but it's it's a very negative term for someone who is brown and like Middle Eastern.
Okay.
And they're like, and that means she's ugly. It's like, okay.
All right.
So that's where that's coming from is from the racism.
Oh, okay.
But like it's important to the story that she's ugly.
Okay.
So this servant comes to the fountain, and she goes to put the pitcher in the water to collect the water to bring back to the queen, and she sees in her reflection in the fountain, she sees this beautiful woman up in the tree above, and she thinks it's herself. So she's like, wow, no. I'm so hot. I'm the hot, like, why am I here gathering water? I'm so hot.
Lady.
I'm just gonna, and then she like puts the pitcher down and like walks away. And that's all that happens on the first day. And then the second day, the servant comes back.
I want to follow her. I want to go. This is the premise to I Feel Pretty, that Amy Schumer movie.
Yeah.
Where she hits her head and then thinks that she's gone through like a body transformation.
Yes. Yeah, so the second day, the servant comes back again with another pitcher. Apparently having gotten home, seen herself in the mirror, and been like, I am ugly. I should have to go fetch water. So she comes back with another pitcher, and she goes to get water. And as she leans over the fountain again, she sees the reflection of this woman up above again. And she's like, no, you know what? I am hot. I was right before. I am too hot for this shit.
Yeah.
So she sets down that pitcher again
and
leaves
girl.
Again. And then the third day, the servant comes back for a third time to come get water. And she looks into the fountain, and this woman who has been left alone for 3 days
is starving to death in this tree.
Yeah, she's like looking down at the servant, and she shifts a little bit, and the servant realizes that it isn't her reflection, that there's a woman above her, which really I feel like
should have figured this out.
Yeah.
A lot earlier.
So the servant says, "Goodness, what a beautiful lady. What are you doing up there? Come down, I want to comb your hair. Look how disheveled you are."
Oh, whoa.
And so she convinces this woman to come down out of the tree, and the woman doesn't want to come down.
Yeah.
Because she's been told to like stay there and not listen to anyone. But, you know, she...
yes, the perfect wife.
Yeah.
One that'll starve to death in a tree because you told her to.
Yep. So, but the servant finally convinces her to come down, and she starts brushing out her hair. And then she takes a pin, and she stabs her in the head with the pin.
What the fuck? Whoa!
The moment that the servant stabs this woman in the head with a pin, the woman turns into a dove and flies away.
Okay.
And the servant is like, I knew that would happen. Also, I know that she was waiting here for the prince. So the servant takes off all of her clothes and puts on the prince's cloak and waits up in the tree for the prince to come back. So, after 3 days of wedding planning and leaving his future wife in a tree...
Why is she not... Okay.
He left his wife in a tree for 3 days. He comes back, and he's like, ugh! Oh! What happened?
This is on him. He deserves this.
He says, ew, how did you become so ugly when you used to be more beautiful than the sun? Oh. And the servant says, my lord, sir, the air and the light offend me. Let me rest for 8 days in a dark room, and then you shall see how I will regain all my beauty. And then he says, let's hope so.
Oh,
that's
God.
a line in the story. So she's like, look, yeah, I may be ugly now, but just like, it's just because like I've been outside for 3 days. So just bring me inside and put me in a dark room for 8 days and I'll be hot again. Which I don't really know what her plan is here.
She's like, listen, I have bags under my eyes because I haven't slept my entire life. All I need is, like, good skincare.
Yep. So the prince takes the servant in disguise as the maiden and brings her back to the castle, and he explains the situation to his mom. He's like, yeah, remember that super hot lady that I told you I found in the woods? She was inside of a nut, and then I was gonna go and bring her back. Well, she's not as hot anymore, but don't worry, she just needs to be kept in a cool, dark place for 8 days. Like a mushroom. Yeah. And then she'll be beautiful again.
Can't wait for my hot wife to come back.
And the queen is like, okay, we'll give her 8 days. So they give her a nice cool room for 8 days. And then at the end of the 8 days, the prince comes in and is like, let me see ya. And she comes out and she's like still ugly. And he's like, oh, what? Damn. And she's like, okay, hear me out though. Marry me now. because I'm gonna get more beautiful again eventually. So you should just marry me now, like, while I'm still ugly and nobody else wants me, and then later I'll be hot and it'll all have been worth it.
I can't figure out who the villain of this story is.
Everyone. And
I'm like genuinely trying to figure out who I hate more.
Yeah, and so he's like, all right, the logic is sound. And so they decide to get married.
Good.
The whole kingdom prepares for the wedding, and the cook begins cooking this massive, fantastic meal.
Mm-hmm.
And as he starts cooking on the first day of preparations for this wedding, a dove comes to the window of the kitchen.
Mm.
And the dove says, "Oh, cook of the great kitchen, what is the king doing with that ugly Saracen?"
Fuck.
Yike. I don't know if you can... I have written in massive letters in my notebook.
Yike. Without the S.
Yep.
Just one.
A single massive yike. What is the king doing with that ugly Saracen? The king being the prince now that he's getting married.
Mm-hmm.
May sleep overtake you at the stove, and may all the food burn.
Whoa.
So the cook hears the dove sing this song.
Oh, it's singing?
I guess. Okay. Poorly, I assume. So the cook hears this song and falls asleep, as the song bids him to do. The food all burns, and the prince/king is like, what the hell? You burned all this food. You're supposed to be a good cook, and you burned all this food. Like, what were you doing? And the cook is like, I fell asleep. And the prince/king is like, well, don't do it again. So the second day, the cook starts cooking again.
Poor cook.
And the dove comes back and sings its weirdly racist song. And is like, go to sleep. And so
I hate it when doves are racist.
And so the cook falls asleep again. And the king comes down. He's like, why do I smell burning food again? Oh, God damn it. And so he wakes the cook up and he's like, you burned all the food again. What happened? And the cook is like, all right, I'm going to be straight with you. A bird came to the window of the kitchen and was like,
fall asleep.
Woo, racism, fall asleep.
Yeah, classic. And the prince is like, I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, and the prince is like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow, when you start cooking, call me, and we're going to catch this bird so it stops singing you to sleep with its slurs. So the next morning, the cook starts cooking. He calls the king down. And right on time, the dove comes to the kitchen window and is like, oh, cook of the great kitchen. And then the king pops out from behind something, I assume, and grabs the dove. And the dove tries to fly away. And he's like, no, hey. And he, like, pets the dove for a little while. It makes a point to say that he sits gentle and just, like, pets the dove for a little while until she calms down. And then he puts her in a really fancy cage.
Cool.
And he's like, great, now the cook can cook. So the cook cooks. And all of the feast is prepared. So now the fourth day, the day before the wedding, the dove is still in this cage in the kitchen, and the cook has some downtime while he's waiting for something to reduce or something.
Sure.
And he goes over to the cage that the bird is in, and he realizes that this dove has a tiny pin stuck in its head.
Oh, okay.
So he opens up the cage, and he very, very gently takes the pin out of the bird's head.
Yeah.
And the bird turns into a beautiful woman. And it's the same beautiful woman from before. The one who, I guess, is probably still covered in sticks or something.
And is naked.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, king, there's a dame in my kitchen now. And the king comes down, he's like, oh my God, that's my wife.
Wow.
So he immediately recognizes his bride, and he is like, oh my God, like, I thought you were upstairs in your dark room again for some reason. And she's like, no, that's not me. He's like, oh, what? I got tricked? She's like, yeah, you got tricked.
You shouldn't have left me in that tree for so long.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, well, what should we do about this? And she's like, well,
kill her.
Here's what we're going to do. At dinner tonight, I want you to introduce me as a traveler from foreign lands. And then we'll have dinner, and then at the end of dinner, I want you to tell everyone to do a fairy tale. So
I want everyone to record an episode of this podcast.
Everyone sits down and listens to my favorite podcast, Sort of the Story, with Janey and Max.
Product placement. We're better than this.
But yeah, so the cook prepares this big dinner for the night before the wedding, and the soon-to-be queen, still very ugly, sits at the head of the table. And then her fiance comes in and he's like, oh, guess what? We have a guest. She's from foreign land. And this woman comes in and immediately the servant recognizes this woman who she stabbed in the head.
Yeah. Whoops.
So she falls silent. She feels her veins run as cold as ice. And she just sort of puts her head down and like won't talk to anyone for the whole dinner because she like doesn't want to be recognized. So they go through this dinner and this incredibly beautiful like foreign dignitary is at the table.
As red as blood.
As red as blood is entertaining everyone. And at the end of the dinner, the prince says, we should, you know, have some little after dinner fairy tales. You know how we do. And he's like, so who wants to go first? And everyone's like, how about this beautiful, fascinating stranger? Maybe she should go first. She probably knows some really good fairy tales. And the beautiful, fascinating stranger is like, ooh, me? No, I couldn't. And they're like, no, please, tell us a fairy tale. And so then she tells the story of a woman who erupted from a walnut and then got tricked by a very rude woman. And everyone is like, oh my God, who would do such a thing? And she's like, I don't know, some bitch, probably. And they're like, what would you, bitch. Yeah, like, what would you even do? Like, if, say, that were a real story and you knew who the woman was who stabbed that nice lady in the head with a pin, like, what would you even do to that person? And the maiden is like, well, I mean, I think the only fitting punishment for someone who stabs an innocent woman in the head is to have her dress in a shirt that has been soaked in pitch and then be burned in the town square.
Jesus. What?
And everyone's like, that would be fair. And the king is like, conveniently, I have a shirt soaked in pitch right here. And why don't we go ahead and use it on this trickster? And then they take the would-be queen and they put a shirt on her and they burn her to death in the town square. And they make a note to be like, and everyone looked out on their balconies and watched the spectacle and laughed and laughed and laughed. And they all lived happily ever after.
She just wanted a week off. She just wanted a week to sit in a dark room. I want that week.
She did stab a woman in the head.
I know, but she didn't kill her.
Yeah, well, she could have. She didn't know that she was going to.
She could have.
Anyways, so...
Jesus Christ.
A couple things that I want to talk about in that. This collection of stories has a bunch of princes going off and finding their brides. There's another one in the collection. The book is called The Pomegranates and Other Modern Italian Fairy Tales. One of the fairy tales is called The Pomegranates. And it's about a young man who is always sad. His father makes for him 3 fountains right outside of his window. One of them runs with wine, one of them runs with vinegar, and one of them runs with oil. And he's like, doesn't this make you happy?
Yeah.
And his son is like,
immediate
no!
salad dressing every day.
And his son is like, no, this doesn't make me happy, and I'm still a rude little bitch. And so the king is like, all right, well, I guess fuck these fountains then. And they stop refilling the fountains. And the prince is looking out his window, and he sees this old woman trying to fill up her cruet with oil from the fountain, and it's taking a long time, and she's like being very patient, but he's just watching her fill this thing up with like the last drips of oil from this fountain.
Yeah.
And as soon as she finishes, he takes a rock and he throws it at the cruet that she's trying to fill so that it shatters. And he's like, haha, hilarious, pranked. And she's like, okay, you will never be happy and your life will be meaningless and pointless until you find a woman made of milk and blood.
Good fucking luck.
He is like, fuck you, old lady. And then he keeps getting sadder and sadder. And he's like, maybe I do have to find a woman made out of milk and blood. So he wanders off into the woods and he harasses people for a long time, I guess. And then eventually he gets to a pomegranate tree and he pulls off one of the pomegranates and he opens it up and a woman comes out.
Cool.
And she's like, do you have any food or anything to drink? And he's like, no. And she's like, ugh. And then she jumps back into the pomegranate and the pomegranate goes back up on the tree. So then he picks another pomegranate and the same thing happens. Like a woman comes out and she's like, do you have any food or water? And he's like, no. And she's like, what? And then like jumps back into the pomegranate, goes back up in the tree. And then the third time a woman pops out of the pomegranate and is like, do you have any food or water? And he's like, yeah, totally. And she's like, great. So she takes these nuts that were given to her and her 2 sisters by the witch that cursed them to be pomegranates. They're magic nuts.
Yeah.
And, like, she runs away with him and, like, she uses her wiliness and tricks to get them away from this witch and everything. And then they go back and they save her sisters who are in the other 2 pomegranates, which also coincidentally he picked the 3 pomegranates that had lilies in them. But...
Pick the other pomegranates. Let's see what's up.
Yeah. So that's another story in this collection. The thing is that, like, the princes in these stories don't do anything to deserve this.
No.
Like, there's no love story
in fact,
to it whatsoever.
They do the opposite.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I have to get married, I guess.
They're spoiled brats, and then they get rewarded.
Yeah, and that's 100% of it. Like, which is wild to me.
It makes you wonder who these stories actually were for.
Yeah.
You know, like, did these...
Spoiled little princes?
did these appeal to women? Because I feel like so many fairy tales, at least how I imagine fairy tales today, which is probably very inaccurate for history, but, like, I imagine that fairy tales appealed always to women, you know? Like, you would think that it's always, like, pious women, and this is who we're marketing it towards. And, like, women, look, if you're good and you're quiet, then you're going to get a handsome prince. But these ones don't seem marketed to women, because they're, like, they're not about the women at all. They're about these spoiled princes getting what they want.
Yeah, but, like, the women are the protagonists in the sense that they're the ones that move the story forward, and they're the ones who are, like, competent and intelligent, but they're also not human women, kind of. Like, they're, like, magical women
objects.
who are... Yeah, they're objects who are, like, just aggressively competent and willing to put up with all of the flaws of whatever this man does, which is dark and bad, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's really rough. They are objects and trophies. They had a specific, like, image of a woman in mind, and then they get that image handed to them. And then these women also have to take care of these men and do a bunch of work for them.
Yeah, they have to prove themselves worthy to a man that just found them.
Yeah.
You know? Anyways.
Yeah. And who didn't even find them correctly. Like, had to try 3 times because they're so bad at things like throwing a cloak over their naked body. Or, like,
simple shit,
giving
guys.
food and water to the pomegranate babies.
Yeah. So, the other thing that I wanted to mention is the red as blood and white as milk or ricotta or snow or anything like that. This is like the 4th or 5th time that this has come up in this podcast as a trope. And I was like, I gotta just do some research on this because that's enough.
That's enough. We need to figure this out.
I came across an academic article which is available online called Red as Blood, White as Snow, and Black as Crow, Chromatic Symbolism of Womanhood in Fairy Tales by Francisco Vaz de Silva, written in 2007. Francisco Vaz de Silva talks about the color significance of each of those things. Like, white is obviously in a very Eurocentric way, which is, like, I think specific to kind of Mediterranean and Germanic fairy tales. It's like white is purity and, like, you know, snow white skin and perfection. And
you
it's
haven't
also
been out in the sun working.
Yeah, but also like whiteness was considered closeness to God. Yeah, which I think is also that's the only other reason why I included the horrible racism in this story is because it is pertinent that it's like, oh, this woman who is white and pure and perfect, and then this woman who literally
turns into a dove, which is another huge Christ symbol.
Yeah, it's or
biblical symbol.
So that's so there's like white for like purity, etc., which is, you know, again, very like Eurocentric, white-centric, and gross as a result. And then as black as crow is thought of as being like sort of being someone who isn't silly, kind of like being sort of a somber level-headedness. Or the fact that black is a very hard dye to produce cheaply. So it would mean that they were, like, you know, wealthy or, like, naturally gifted. And then Vaz de Silva puts forward that red as blood as in, like, passionate and loving, but also in terms of, like,
health?
Period blood. It's what they was like, oh, and also she can have babies, which I don't agree with. I don't think that symbolism makes sense to me, but...
Well, I was thinking it had something to do with health. You know, like the rosy cheeks means that you are alive and you have like blood pumping.
Passion and, like, virility and everything like that, yeah.
Because, like, the juniper tree, it's a little boy who is as red as blood. I just imagine it's health.
Yeah, so the thing that was interesting to me is that I was trying to find if there was, because we've talked a lot about the Arns-Thompson-Uther scale, or index in our previous episodes and stuff like that. I was curious to see if that was something that came up in anywhere on the ATU index, and it doesn't, but the Thompson of Arns-Thompson-Uther, he created the Thompson motif index, which is separate. It goes more into, like, things that happen in stories that aren't necessarily...
TMI Max.
Things that are, like, weirdly endemic to stories but aren't necessarily, like, plot centered. And the Thompson motif index lists type T 11.6 as the trope of a wife as red as blood, white as snow, and black as raven. So it's in that index, it is exclusively, like, a wife who is, which in like Snow White and stuff like that, I think is interesting that it's not considered like, oh, the mom was wishing for a daughter who was X, Y, and Z, but it's more so like, oh, someone's future wife who is X, Y, and Z, which is also kind of a dark way of thinking about
impossible beauty standards.
Yeah. But there are a bunch of things that fall into this category. Obviously, there's Snow White, the Three Citrons, which is another version of this same story, kind of. It is combined with a couple of other different stories. The Crow, Briar Rose, and also Sleeping Beauty, like the red blood on white cotton and everything like that.
Yeah.
And the Goose Girl. So those are just some stories that you can check out that all have this like weird same trope in them. But I was actually shocked at how little I could find in terms of analysis of this like white and red symbolism in that, especially in terms of like people who want their children to look like that.
And yeah, that's wild. But I'm glad to know that people are kind of thinking about it though. Like that, you know, that it's like there's a whole trope there and the question stands. What does that baby look like?
Yeah, what does that mean? Anyways,
well, so that was super fun.
The Bloody Ricotta.
The Bloody Ricotta. Blah!
Nasty.
Awesome. Do you want to take a break?
I do.
Okay, bye guys. All right, Max.
Okay, Janey.
Max, okay. So I got a new book, Folk and Fairy Tales, edited by Martin Hallett and Barbara Karasek. I got it off Thrift Books, along with a bunch of other stuff that I just threw into my cart. And genuinely, I think this is my favorite one. It's a beautiful little book, and it's a compilation of a bunch of different variations of the same fairy tales, which I thought was really cool. So they talk specifically about, in like the introduction and stuff, about how there's just so many types of the same story, and they come from different cultures, and they have little things that are changed, and so they made little compilations. So we have a bunch of stories of Little Red Riding Hood, including The Story of Grandmother by Paul Delarue, Little Red Riding Hood by Charles Perrault, Little Red Cap, The Chinese Red Riding Hoods, Flossie and the Fox, The Company of Wolves, Wolf, What Bugs Bunny Said to Red Riding Hood. Like, it literally has, like, a bunch of stories, like, put in. And then we also have the same thing for Sleeping Beauty. We have the same things for Cinderella, all the different types. Growing Up is Hard to Do, which is just a bunch of the same kind of tropes in the same theme. So I thought this was really cool. I read a couple. I ended up going to the chapter that is, or the part of the book that is called A Less Than Perfect World. In this part of the book, they have The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen, A Toy Princess by Mary de Morgan, The Griffin and the Minor Canon by Frank Stockton, and I chose The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. Because I thought it was really fun to see Oscar Wilde in a fairy tale book.
I actually just came across this a little while ago. I didn't realize that Oscar Wilde wrote fairy tales, but my first big paper that I did in college was on Oscar Wilde and misconceptions of social conservatism in the Victorian era. Like the idea that Victorians were very like prudish and everything like that.
Yeah.
When in fact it was like a very like sexually liberated era in certain ways, as long as you were rich.
Yes, but
which
also,
works for Oscar Wilde.
We can kind of go into this a little bit, but Oscar Wilde had a pretty rough life when it came to his sexuality because he was gay and he actually was thrown in prison. He had to sue people for calling him a sodomite. Like, he literally had to take people to trial because his reputation was being dragged through the dirt because he was a gay man and couldn't be. Like, physically could not be a gay man at that time period. And then he ended up dying really young, and I think a lot of it had to do with his lifestyle and how he was treated in his time in prison.
So part of what my research was on was people knew for a long time that Oscar Wilde was gay, and it was something that was like not commonly discussed. Like you didn't talk about it, but everyone knew about it, and everyone was kind of fine with it. I mean, there were a bunch of people in the upper classes in that time where everyone was like, yeah, he's gay, but like as long as you don't make a big deal out of it, then it's fine. And honestly, like even people who had political power were like aware of it and would like joke with him about it. But towards later in his life, it was reported that he started getting kind of comfortable with being in like around these people of the upper classes, and so he would start making jokes at people's expense, and that's when he was arrested.
Like, oh no.
Yeah, they were like, we already knew about this, and now we're gonna do something about it because you were rude at my party.
Jesus Christ. Well, this story, it's called The Happy Prince, and I'm just gonna go into it. I will say, this story, I read this at 4:00 this morning, and it made me shed a tear. So we'll see. It's a cute one. It reminds me of a lot of other authors, but we'll go ahead and get into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a city square, there stands a statue. And it's a statue of a beautiful prince. And this man is very tall, and he's covered in gold leaves. Like, his entire body has, like, pure gold, just, like, leaf all over his body, so he shines like the sun. His eyes, where the irises are, there are 2 bright blue sapphires, and they sparkle and they shine. And then he has holding a sword, and on the hilt of the sword, there's a really big ruby. And everybody walks past the square where the Happy Prince, he also has a big smile on his face, and so everybody calls him the Happy Prince. They're like, this is such a beautiful, happy man. He's so serene. He's always content. Like, he makes you smile when you walk past him. Like, he's so well crafted. And so everyone loves him, and you can hear people as they pass by what they're saying. So at one point, a woman is dragging her terrible child by, and this kid is like, I want this, and I want that, and he's just screaming and crying. And the woman says, like, why can't you be more like the Happy Prince? Like, the Happy Prince never wants more than he's owed, and blah, blah, blah. And so she drags him by. She's so mad at this kid. And then at one point, a man walks by, and he's like, oh, this statue is as pretty as a woodcock. But then because he was like, I want everyone to think I'm an artistic genius. Like, I have taste, and I know that this statue is as pretty as a woodcock. Did I look it up? No. So, whatever. Google it yourselves. Damn, I'm just Janey.
I'm just Janey.
I'm just Janey. But, he says, this is so beautiful. But then he immediately is like, but not as useful, because he also doesn't want people to think he's impractical, because actually he's very practical, okay? He's not crazy. So this guy cares. And then some charity...
This guy's making his insecurities everyone's problem.
It really is. And then some charity children walk by, right? And they're wearing their little red caps and their perfect white little pinafores, and they're in their line. I'm assuming they're orphans. But as they're walking by, they're all like, wow, he looks like an angel. And they're all like just really loving him. And they have this terrible math teacher who's like walking them, and he's like, how do you guys know what angels look like? And they're like, we dreamed it. And he's like, ugh, because he's really mad this is like, I don't know the exact quote, but it basically says, like, he scoffs because he hates it when children dream. Like,
people who like math notoriously hate it when children dream.
So this is the Happy Prince, right? We've set it up. This beautiful statue, everybody's in love with it. It makes children dream, and it makes math teachers mad that they're dreaming. Okay, so in a nearby area, or like pretty far away in like the countryside, there's a swallow, right? And this swallow, basically 6 weeks ago, all of his friends like started flying to Egypt because it's getting colder. So now they have to migrate. So all the swallows had left, but this one swallow had stayed behind an extra 6 weeks because he had fallen in love with a reed. So he's on the river, a reed in the river.
Oh, not like a guy named Reed?
No. It's a lady reed. And basically, he was, like, chasing a big yellow moth, and he caught sight of this, like, reed's slender waist, and she was, like, waving and dancing, and he's like, hello! So, like, he swooped around, and then he was like, shall I love you? What do you think? And she, like, ooh, she, like, waves in the wind, and he's like, oh my god, she's dancing for me. So then he decided to court her by flying really close to the water, and like brushing the water with his silver wings so that all these ripples start going by, and he's like, look at that, don't you think that's great? And he does that all summer. Like, he's just flying around and singing to her and being like, we're gonna get married. And before all of his friends left, they were like, hey, you fucking idiot, this is the stupidest thing anybody's ever did.
That's a leaf.
Hello? That's a reed. No, they don't say that. They basically say, like, hey, she has way too many relatives. What? She's surrounded by other reeds, okay? I don't know why that matters for them, but they're like, you idiot.
You fool.
She's got so many siblings. So they all leave for Egypt without him. They're like, come with us. And he's like, no, I'm gonna stay here with my wife. And then after they're all gone, he gets kind of bored, and he's like, she's not really good at conversation. So that's one thing. And also, like, I want whoever I'm with, I guess, to travel with me. Like, I travel all around the world, and, like, this reed, I don't even know if she wants to travel with me. So, like, he flies up to her, and he's like, hey, do you want to go to Egypt with me? And she, like, shakes her head, and he's like, oh, you tricked me. You're not serious. And not to mention,
Temptress.
Not to mention, he also thinks she's a huge slut because she dances for the wind. So He's like, I break up with you. And then he like flies away indignantly to go catch up with his friends who are having a great time in Egypt without him. Meanwhile, he's saddled here with this reed who dances for the wind. So he flies all day, and then he ends up in the city, right? And as he goes there, he's like, I really hope they made preparations for me. Like, you know, they should have known I was coming. And he, like, flies up, and he's like, you know, I'm gonna rest here, and then I'll continue on to Egypt in the morning. And he finds himself at the foot of this big statue. And as he lands, he's like, this is the perfect place to go. Like, I'm underneath the statue, so it's blocking out any, like, bad weather, even though the sky is perfectly clear, like, crystal clear. There's no chance of rain. The stars are shining and bright. And also he looks around and he's like, whoo, I've got a gold bedroom. Like, he's, like, really excited. He's like, this is fancy. And so he hunkers down and he goes to cover his head with his wing, and he starts to, like, try to fall asleep. And then a really big drop of water splashes all over him, and he's like, ah!
Oh, no!
I'm wet! And so, like, he pokes his head out, and he's looking, and he's like, it's not raining! And then another big splash of water, and he's like, pow! Like, huge drop of water just splashes on top of him, and he's like, what the fuck is good? What is the statue good for? It's not even protecting me from the rain. Like, what is it raining in the statue? And then as soon he's like, I'm gonna go find like a chimney to sleep in. Like, this is unacceptable. But before he can really like unfold
2 stars.
2 drops. But before he can like unfold himself completely from his little wing, a 3rd drop of water slams into him, and he's like, just now he's soaked and he's pissed. So he like shakes himself off, and he looks up and he sees that this very handsome statue who has these shining, you know, bright blue eyes that are shining in the moonlight is crying. And these tears are just, like, streaming down his cheeks, and he has this big smile on, and he's looking out at the city, and he's just crying. And so the bird, like, flies up, and he kind of pities him, because he's, like, an attractive statue. And he's like, well, you're not ugly, let's talk. So he goes up there, and he's like, hey, who are you? And the statue's like, I'm the happy prince. And he's like, why are you crying? That's not very happy. And the prince says to him, when I was alive, basically like, they never even really go into this, but he says, before I was cursed, I was alive, and I had a human heart, and I lived in this place, and I didn't write down the name of the place, but basically it's like this palace, like this kingdom that had a big garden, like wall all around it. And he said that, he's like, I didn't even know what tears were when I was alive, because no sorrow was allowed in my home. And so like, we all just kind of played and were happy and we laughed, and it was so nice that I didn't even think about leaving the castle walls to go outside and see what the world was like, because I was so happy all the time. And that's how I lived, and that's how I died. But after I died, they put me up here, and now I'm in this statue, and I have this lead heart in my body, and all I do all day is I look out at the city, and I see how much people in the city are suffering, and it's miserable. This is the worst thing ever. And the bird is like, he's not solid gold? Like, what?
Jesus.
The bird doesn't say that out loud, okay? But like, he thinks to himself like, huh, lead heart?
Is there a corpse in there? Is there a corpse in there?
No, it's not. Specifically, the only thing about him that we know is that he has a lead heart.
Why would they? All right.
Cursed. I don't know. So he's looking up there, and he's crying because it's so upsetting. And so the bird is like, like what? And he's like, well, far away. He's like, I can see, I'm looking into a window right now of a seamstress, and she's hunched over her work. She's embroidering passion flowers, and they're beautiful, but her fingers are, like, bruised, and they're bandaged, and they're covered in scars from her work, and her back is, like, so, like, you know, hunched over, and this is hard, and she's losing her eyesight, and she's doing this all throughout the night. She's trying to get it done as fast as possible for one of the queen's handmaidens. But next to her, in a little bed, lies a little boy, and he's feverish, and he's dying, and he's suffering, and he's so sick, and she's trying to work because she's trying to raise the money, but she can't, like, take care of him while she does this, and he's crying and crying because all he wants is an orange. Aww. And she cannot afford an orange. All she can afford is to literally gather water from the river and give this to him. So he's drinking river water, and he's, like, crying, and this statue's crying, and he's like, I hate watching this. And so he tells the bird, he goes, hey, can you do me a favor? If you just take the ruby out of the hilt of my sword, you can fly it over to her, and that'll help her out a whole bunch, and then I won't have to watch this anymore. Like, what if you just did that? And the bird's like, I don't like little boys. And he's like, what do you mean? And so the bird's like, I actually kind of hate little boys. One time, like, a bunch of little boys threw rocks at me. I mean, they didn't hit me because I'm a swallow and I'm really good at flying. And also, I kind of come from a lineage, like, you wouldn't know because you're just a statue, but, like, among swallows, like, my family name is known. We're real good flyers. And so they didn't hit me. But, it was the insult of it all, It was just disrespectful. So, yeah, I don't think I'm a fan of little boys. And the statue's like, can you please, just, like, one night, and you're gonna, like, come on. And so eventually the statue's like, little swallow, please do as I command. Like, please. And the swallow's like, all right, fine. You know what? What else do I have to do? So he flies up, he takes the ruby out of the hilt of the sword, and he starts to fly. And as he flies across the city, he passes by this beautiful, like, balcony of a woman and her lover, right? And they've come out on the balcony and they're looking at the stars, and the lover's like, wow, what a beautiful night for love. And the stars are shining and we're just so happy. And the woman is like, yes. She starts talking about how excited she is because she has a new dress coming, right? And she's like, I have this new dress coming and it's going to be embroidered with passion flowers. And then she says, I hope it's ready in time for the ball, but you know how lazy seamstresses are. And so she starts talking shit about seamstresses. And then the bird keeps flying past these two very wealthy, in love, beautiful people. And he all the way down into the slums, and he eventually makes it to the window of the seamstress. And she has now fallen asleep on top of her work. The candle's, like, starting to go down. So the little bird drops the ruby right next to her, where he knows that when she wakes up, that's the first thing she's going to see. And then he sees a little boy and he thinks, like, I'm here anyway. And he starts to flap his wings. He kind of flies around and around this little boy's head. And he has this breeze go onto this little boy's head. And little boy says, like, oh, I'm so cool now. And then he says, like, I must be getting better. And then he falls into a little sleep, right? Like, he's so peaceful and so happy.
Jesus Christ.
This story's gonna make us bawl, just so you know. I was a mess.
Mm-mm.
So, I know. You guys get ready. I'm just remembering how I couldn't even finish the fucking elk story.
Oh my god.
Alright, we're gonna keep it together today. So, he goes back to the prince and he tells him all about it. And he's like, whoa. He's like, I did what you told me, but also I did this for a little boy. And it's weird. It's really cold because it's, it's getting towards winter. Like, he can't be here. This little bird has to go. He's waited too long. But he's also like, it's so weird because it's cold, but I feel warmer right now. Like, what's that about? And I'm, like, energized. And the prince is like, you did a good deed. You feel good about yourself, dude. And he's like, wow, that was great. And so then he goes to sleep and he's feeling really happy. And the prince stops crying and he feels happy. So the next morning, the bird gets up and he flies around the city and he's checking things out. And, like, he maybe still, like, a little breadcrumb here and there. And he sees people and he's, like, having a great day, right? And he's like, this is a pretty nice city. He doesn't really notice much. He just notices, like, movement, right? And then he goes back to the prince because he needs to say goodbye. Now the day is ending and he's like, cool, I'm going to fly through the night. So, hi, I'm here to say goodbye. Thank you for everything. That was a really fun night. I'll see you later, buddy. And the prince is like, can you please stay one more night? Like, just stay one more night because I need you to do something else for me. And the bird is like, no, I'm going to Egypt. All my friends are in Egypt right now and they're having so much fun. They're, like, at the statues of these gods and they're, like, eating all this stuff and this is what they do every year and I know that this is what they're doing today. Like, I have to get there. And the prince is like, okay, but he says out on this, in a little house, there's a playwright. And he's so talented and he works so hard.
Okay.
And he has big, beautiful eyes. He specifically talks about how hot this playwright is.
Fucking Mary Sue.
But he's like, this playwright's in there. And he owes the theater his new play, but he has no money for firewood, and so he's freezing to death in his house right now. And his fingers are so cold that they actually can't hold a pen anymore. And, like, he can't finish it. He's definitely not going to be ready in time. And also he's so hungry that, like, he's feeling faint. Like, this is his way of making a living, and he can't do it because he is physically too cold and hungry. And so the bird's like, oh, yeah, that sucks, I guess. And he's like, so, okay, fine. I'll stay one more night. I'll stay one more night with you and I'll help you out. Don't worry. Do you want me to bring in, like, another ruby? And the prince is like, I don't have another ruby. That was my only ruby. But you could take the sapphire, one of the sapphires in my eyes, and then bring that to him. It'll make him so happy and then he'll be able to finish his play. And the bird's like, I can't do that. I'm not going to take your eye. Like, that's really fucked up, dude. And the bird's, like, specifically like, no. I'm not doing that. And the prince just begs him. He's like, please, little swallow, please just take my eye. Go give it to this playwright. And so the bird's like, this is fucked up. All right.
That's real fucked up.
And so he flies up and he plucks out his sapphire eye and he flies it over to the playwright. And he drops it. He has, like, a vase of, like, dying violets on his table. And so the playwright's, like, shivering and asleep. The bird, like, flies in and then drops the sapphire on the dying violets and then flies out. And the playwright wakes up and sees this sapphire, because he wakes up because of the breeze from the bird, and he sees the sapphire, and he's like, whoa, this must be from an admirer. Like, maybe somebody really likes my work, and they gave me a present. I can finish my play. And he's so happy. He's, like, jumping up and down, like, he can do what he's gonna survive, basically, and he's just so happy. And so the bird gets back, and he tells the statue all about it, and then he goes to sleep. And the next day, he sees, like, sailors getting ready to, like, set sail and all this stuff, and as everybody's, like, calling back and forth, the little bird starts to scream out, like, I'm going to Egypt! He's telling everyone, I'm going to Egypt! And nobody can hear him, but he's, like, so excited, and he, like, swoops around, then he goes back to the statue, and he's like, I'm here to say goodbye. I'll never forget you. And guess what? I'm going to come back next season, and I'm bringing you 2 new jewels. So I'm not going to forget you. I'm going to bring you a sapphire that's, like, bright blue, so you're going to have your eye back, and I'm going to bring you, like, the biggest ruby I can find. Like, so thanks for everything. I'm not going to forget you. And the statue is like, stay one more night. And he's like, I can't stay another night. And he's like, one more night. I can't do this without you. And then he says, there's a little match girl in the street.
Jesus Christ. I read the story of the little match girl, like, I think it's, like, Hans Christian Andersen, maybe? And that was one of my first stories that I read when I was, like, little.
Same.
I remember being like,
just bawling.
What the fuck? I'm a child. Why would you give me this?
Oh, yeah. So he says a little match girl, and she's dropped all of her matches in the gutter, and now they're wet and they're ruined. And if she goes home right now, her dad is going to beat her. And
God.
And he's like, and again, this statue has this big smile on his face. He's covered in gold. He has one eye now, and he's crying. And he's like, she doesn't have any shoes on. She doesn't have a hat on her head. It's getting so cold, and she's just crying in the fucking gutter. Like, please just stay one more day. Like, just stay one more day. Like, I need you. And the bird's like, all right, I'll stay one more night, but you don't have anything else to give. And he's like, take my other eye. And the bird starts to cry. He's like, I can't take your other eye. You're going to be blind if I take your other eye. Like, I'm not doing that. And the statue's like, little swallow, do as I command. Take this other eye. I don't want it. And so the bird's like, okay. So he takes the other eye, he flies it over, he drops it into the little girl's hands, and this worried me, but also it's kind of cute. He drops this sapphire, this, like, priceless gem into her hands, and this little girl goes, what pretty glass. And then she starts to laugh, and then she runs home. And so she's not going to get beat, but also I was like, oh my god, what if she thought it was just glass?
I thought she was going to eat it. I thought she was going to be like, oh, pretty. You shouldn't give jewels to kids.
No, she's too little for much of the story. So now the bird comes back and perches on his shoulder and says, like, I did what you asked, and tells him all about it. And the statue's really happy. He's like, that's really good. Thank you. And the bird's like, so I'm going to stay with you now. I'm not going to leave to go to Egypt, so don't worry, I'm going to be with you. And the statue's like, no, you have to go to Egypt. And the bird's like, you're blind now. I'm not leaving you. So, like, get ready, I'm your new roommate. And the statue is like, no, you have to leave. Like, you can't stay here. And the bird's like, I'm staying. That's the end of the story. And so for the next couple of days, the bird sits on his shoulder, and he tells him so many stories about his adventures and about the lakeside and about his Reed ex-girlfriend and how much of a bitch she was. And, like, he just tells him all of this stuff and these beautiful tales about the river, and he, like, really makes it really poetic. And he's like, I've had the best time. This is what Egypt's like. You would love Egypt. It's so great. And as he's, like, talking about it, the prince eventually is like, you know, you tell me these wonderful, marvelous stories, but the only thing that really matters are other people around us and what they're like. And I want to know how my people are doing. I'm worried because they were suffering and now I can't see them. And I thought that would be better, but it's actually kind of worse. So can you fly around the city and just let me know what's up? And the bird's like, okay. So he starts to fly around the city. And what he sees is pretty shocking. He flies through the rich districts, right? That's the one that's closest to the Happy Prince, right? So the wealthy families are all near the Happy Prince, and so that they can go by and they can see him every day. And he sees like people eating delicious meals and dressing in beautiful clothing, and they're loving each other, and their children are fat and happy, and like they're dancing and they're squabbling about, you know, money issues, whatever. But like whatever they're doing, they're just having their like decadent lifestyles. But just outside of that area of the city, he sees it almost immediately turns to slums. Like there's no like middle ground. It's like decadently wealthy and then just slums. And he sees, you know, people working really hard and it not paying off. And he sees little kids in the street begging. And he sees two little boys specifically who have huddled together and are like sleeping cuddled together. Because again, it's winter now.
Like
so
birds.
They are like birds. And they're huddling together on like next to a house to stay warm. And he watches as a guard comes out and like starts like clapping and like shouting at them and is like, you can't sleep here, you need to leave. So he chases them off and they have to go find someplace else to sleep and hopefully stay warm. And so the bird comes back and he tells them all this and he's like, yeah, it's pretty bad out there. It's not great. And the prince is like, I'm covered in gold, like leaf by leaf, just take them off, like just take these gold leaves off of me. And so like the bird's like, okay. So like basically his cloak is made of gold leaves. I don't think it's gold leaf. It's specifically like leaves of gold. And so the bird starts to take the leaves off one by one and he will drop them down on top of the poor. And so all these kids now suddenly within days, they're all like, suddenly like they have rosy cheeks and they're all happy and they're all like, we have bread now. Like this is the best thing ever. And the bird's like, they're so happy now. And he's like going back and he's like telling this princess stuff and he's really excited. But it's getting colder and colder. And this little bird realizes, like, oh, like, I stayed too long. Whoops. And so he starts flapping his wings harder to try to keep warm. And he's going to the baker. And every time the baker turns his head, he'll, like, steal a crumb here and there. But he realizes pretty soon, like, oh, I'm not going to make it. So he knows he's dying. So he goes up on his last day, which he knows it's going to be his last day. He flies. He uses his energy. He goes up to the prince's shoulder. And he says, like, I'm here to say goodbye. And the prince is like, I'm so happy you're going to Egypt. Like, you deserve it. You deserve to be with your family and your friends, and this is amazing. Hold on. I hate this. We know I'm...
Why are you doing this?
I know, we know I'm a huge baby. So, he's like, I'm so happy that you're going. And the bird's like, oh, I'm not going to Egypt. I'm going to death's door. And the prince is like, oh. And he's like, death is the brother to sleep, right? So I'm basically just going to fall asleep. And he's like, but I love you. I'm really happy this happened. This is the only thing I wanted. He's like, so can I kiss your hand before I die? And the prince is like, oh, you can kiss my lips. I love you.
What?
Oh yeah, no, we'll talk about it. And so the prince is like, you can go ahead and kiss my lips. And so the bird flies over, gives him a kiss on the lips, and then dies and falls down at his feet dead. At that moment, there is a curiously loud cracking sound. It is a really cold night, like the coldest night the city has ever really seen. So the bird dies, and then basically the prince's lead heart has cracked in two. The next day, the mayor of this town is walking with his counselors all behind him, and everything he says they repeat and agree with, because that's how they are. They're big kiss asses. And the mayor walks by, and he's like, I'm so happy to see the happy prince. What? He's all gray. And, like, he looks up, and all the gold has been stripped off of him, and he's like, oh, his eyes are just, there's no sapphires in them, and where's the ruby on his hilt? And he's all gray now. All the gold is gone. He looks like nothing but a beggar. And all the counselors are like, nothing but a beggar. Just a beggar. And he's like, we need to get him out of here. And they're like, yeah, get him out of here. And then he looks down and he sees, it's like, and there's a gross dead bird on the ground. And they're like, ew. And he's like, clerk, make a note of this. We need to make a law that no birds are allowed to die on these statues anymore. And the clerk, like, writes down, like, no more dead birds. And so he's like, let's get it out of here.
And bird death? Question mark?
Make birds immortal? So...
bird gods?
I'm on it, Mayor. That's a new fairy tale of this clerk trying to find the bird god.
The unpaid intern of the mayor trying to figure out how to find the god of bird immortality.
You know what? And to this day, he's still looking. an art historian comes up and he's like, yeah, honestly, now that he's like ugly and dull, he's pretty worthless. Like this is just a disgusting statue, like take it down. And so they tear it down and they melt down this statue. And they're like, what should we do with all of this material? And the mayor's like, we should make a new statue, maybe of myself. And then everyone's like, of myself, no, of myself. And so then they all should start like arguing and fighting. And Oscar Wilde says like, I've heard to this day they're still quarreling. You can still hear them. And so then the most curious thing is that this lead heart, they melted down the whole statue and they found that inside there was a lead heart. But this heart is the only thing that will not melt. Like, it is indestructible. And so they're like, it's all cracked. It's made of lead. Like, what are we going to do with it? And they basically said, like, throw it out. Like, it's garbage. So just throw it out. So they take this lead heart and they throw it into a dust heap next to the bird's body, which they had also just thrown away into this dust heap. So there's there. Okay.
Jesus Christ.
So the story ends in a different setting. One day, God, bird God. One day, God.
Bird God.
One day, God asks.
Bird God.
Stop it. One day, God asks his angel, bring me the most precious things in the city. And so the angel goes out and he finds the lead heart that's all cracked down the middle and the bird's body. And he brings them up to God. And God says, like, you're right. You did good. These are the most precious things in the city. And for now to the end of time, this little bird is going to sing throughout my garden. And, the happy prince is going to live in this garden and worship me forever. And that's how it ends. That's the big old the end, is they end in heaven.
Aw.
Okay, so this story, if you guys have ever read Dostoevsky, anything by Dostoevsky, he has a story, now I'm going to forget. It's a Christmas story about a little boy who is an orphan who freezes to death. And it's the same thing. It's an orphan. He's cast out by everyone. Nobody takes care of him. The story opens with this kid cuddling his dead mother.
Jesus Christ.
It goes through his day of being a beggar child, starving to death and freezing to death in the streets. But at the end of it, he's reunited with his mother, who's like, I'm so happy to see you.
It's the fucking Christmas shoes.
It is, basically. No, Christmas Shoes does not end like that. Christmas Shoes just ends with her dying.
Yeah.
They don't get reunited.
I guess, but like...
No. So this is a very specific trope of these types of writers. So it's the idea of, like, taking... And same thing, Anton Chekhov has several stories about this, too. About watching the poor suffer. Specifically, the children of the poor suffer. Mm-hmm. And being, like... And comparing it to the wealthy. And seeing how the wealthy... cast them aside or are able to be like, those aren't even humans, like, not like me. Yeah. It's just like an indictment of the class system and how it's failing the people. And so this goes into that hall of depression. The little match girl, that's the story. The fact that he mentions the little match girl in there, I do not think is an accident.
Definitely not an accident.
No. I don't know if Little Match Girl's Hans Christian Andersen. It could be Charles
Dickens.
I almost said Darwin. Charles Darwin is a different type of... He does not agree with this.
I like that in the story they make the point to be like, oh, the little swallow flies into town and he flies over the rich district and the wealthy woman who's having this dress made is like, they're so lazy. That's not pertinent to the plot. They're just like, just a reminder that rich people fucking suck.
Well, it's the idea that, like, what you're seeing is the two sides of this labor. You're seeing the woman literally breaking her fingers while her child dies next to her because she's trying so hard to keep him alive and she can't even do that. And then you're seeing the other lady being like, what do they even do all day?
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's pretty brilliant. There's a lot of it's also just this is a beautifully written story, which, of course, Oscar Wilde, he wrote this before he wrote The Picture of Dorian Gray. Mm-hmm. But there are some similarities, which is The Picture of Dorian Gray is about, both of these are about inner beauty, basically, right? Like, you have a beautiful man who's so ugly on the inside, and then with this one, you have this beautiful statue who's literally, like, giving away his beauty as a way to, like, help other people. Mm-hmm. He's rewarded at the end by God. Like, they have very similar themes, very religious themes for both of them as well.
Giving Tree.
The Giving Tree, also, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. The whole car ride over. I was like, oh, I live here, but like I was out in the car today thinking about this. And then some people have said like this could be an allegory for like a homosexual relationship because they said like obviously at the end these two loved each other very much and there was that whole kiss on the lips. I don't know if, to me, kissing on the lips seems like a weirdly dated thing. You know? Also, it's a bird, so
to me it doesn't feel sexual, romantic in any way. It sort of just feels like the statue is like, you're my equal and like my dearest friend, you know?
And your equals and dearest friends kiss on the lips. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's The Happy Prince. The most depressing story I've read in a very long time.
I'm one unhappy prince.
Aren't you happy? Aren't you happy that I ended with this story?
Thank you so much.
Okay, well guys, we'll see you later. Fuck.
Bye, I guess.
Go check out our merch store, Sort of the Story, on TeePublic. And also all of our social medias. And email us if you have any thoughts or questions or things you want to share.
Yeah.
If you want to send videos of you crying to Oscar Wilde, do that at Max's personal email.
I almost said it and then I
almost said it too.
Y'all can't have my email. That's for business.
All right, guys. Well, we love you, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Test.
Testing.
Test. Test.
All right.
You. Test.